On behalf of CrossCheck Media and Biz Talk Today TV, welcome everyone to Power Hour. I am your host, Todd Schoenberger. James Breslow is away on assignment covering the breaking news of the day. He will be back on Monday. But with me today is Lieutenant Colonel Berney Flowers. He is a congressional candidate. He just announced his candidacy for the 2026 midterm election. He's looking to represent District 3 in the great state of Maryland. And in full disclosure, I am from Maryland. I'm sure most of the audience already knows that, though. Bernie, welcome to Power Hour. So, we are obviously in the middle of the government shutdown. You're looking at day 23 right now that's taking place. Now, Maryland, obviously being right there, but bumping up to DC, is already feeling this. They actually have had $185 million in grants that have been taken away. There's furloughed employees. How does the government shutdown impact your campaign? And more importantly, how does it impact your message?
Thanks for asking, Todd. It's always a pleasure to see you. We got a long history together, and you are one of my good buddies, and I just thank you, brother. But
Definitely.
back to the campaign. I mean, a lot of people who don't know a lot about politics are blaming the Republicans, but now people are starting to understand it's all about the continuing resolution. The Republicans put together a 27-page clean bill that the Democrats they denied, and they want to basically fund health care for illegals and put a whole lot of pork in there that the American people don't want. How is it affecting my campaign? Well, it's going to take a little while because the impact will be noticed at the ballot box next November. A lot of people, are a little upset. We got so many Republican, or better yet, we have so many federal employees here, and they're angry. They're going to be angry. Anybody would lose their job would be angry. But the issue of the day is they're going to understand over time that this is a problem that the Democrats in Congress have caused, and they're going to understand. They're smart people, they're government employees, and I'm 100% sure that they'll figure this out. So how is it affecting my campaign? To be announced. How about that? we're
Okay,
just
that's
we're just
fair.
going to
That's
go
fair because I
forward.
know it's early. You got a whole
Yeah.
year until the election. You announce your candidacy for a variety of reasons, and we'll get into a couple of those in a bit. But with this government shutdown, and you are right, you're talking about the $1.5 trillion that the Democrats are hoping to have in this CR to have it pass to reopen the government. And the Republicans are saying, look, we have full leverage here. The president is leaving for Asia. The Dems want Trump involved in the negotiation. But locally, though, it's impacting you locally. I'm in New York right now, so we're not, it's more of a story, if anything. But
Yeah.
there, it's personal.
Oh yeah.
With that, though, I mean, there is so many infrastructure issues that are going on in the state only because so many people are moving into the great state of Maryland. But what are your fiscal policies? What are you thinking of if you are elected next year?
America first. Bottom line. The issue today is that our government is not doing a good job on a national level, even on a state level. A lot of people are leaving Maryland because they simply can't afford the taxes. Things are going up like crazy. But let me give you an example.
Okay.
The Francis Scott Key Bridge, 2004, broken. You know as well as I do that the Army Corps of Engineers fixes bridges. They've done it in Louisiana for Katrina. They've done it in Texas. They've done it all over the United States. They've done it for other countries. But the politics here in Maryland don't allow for our bridge to get fixed. Now, you know this area. There are people over in Dundalk that have to drive to work. They have to get on I-95. And before they were able to get onto the bridge and, no problem. Now their commutes have been, in some cases, doubled. And we pay a lot of money. We pay a pretty penny in taxes for these people to be arguing about semantics and everybody trying to get a piece of the pie when the average guy who has a family living in Dundalk is having to suffer with a ridiculous commute. And so that's just one example of the kind of things I would like to take a look at, and I think I have the expertise with my background in the federal government to make a difference. And the person who is the incumbent right now seems to be not necessarily interested in such thing. I'm an America First guy. I am a meat and potatoes, middle class guy, and I'm trying to bring my expertise to the government so that we can fix some of these problems.
Yeah, and for the audience, so you know, the in Baltimore there is a beltway, a loop, an actual highway that circles the entire city of Baltimore, similar to the beltway that you have in Washington. But that key bridge is a huge part of it because that's part of the beltway, and without that, people just don't have that full circle that they can drive around, and therefore it increases commuting times. Why is it taking so long, though, Bernie? I mean, it sounds like it's federal and state, but I'd imagine Governor Westmore wants to get this thing wrapped up. And exactly is the holdup?
You are applying logic to an illogical situation.
Okay.
The good governor seems to be not in the interest of doing anything with the Trump administration to help the people. The bottom line is all he would have to do is make a phone call or an email, and the Corps of Engineers would be in here doing initial studies. As you remember from Katrina, I used to drive across the Slidell Bridge all the time during my Air Force time. And, when Katrina happened, they had an initial operating capability ready to go in about 3 months. And you're driving down there. You right now you wouldn't even know that there's a problem. The bridge up in Minnesota, they got it up and running pretty quickly. That was about 10 years ago. But the issue of the day is we have resources that are allocated for emergencies, and our governor here in Maryland seems to want to play politics with people's lives. So I'm not in favor of that.
So give me some inside baseball here because being in New York, I'm still talking to uh, government leaders of the state of Maryland for a number of reasons, several that you know of, and we won't get into that on camera, of course. But you have with the governor. There is the speculation that he wanted to run for president in 28. Then he backed off of that, feeling that if Gavin Newsom gets the ticket, then he could be part of that ticket, maybe in a VP way. So you would imagine the state of Maryland needs to show as much growth, obviously a reduction in crime, hopefully a increase as far as the population goes. So with all that said, I mean, is that an uphill battle for you because you're running on a Republican ticket in what is known as a mostly blue state? How is everything impacting you from that federal government level with the hopes of Westmore getting on that 28 ticket?
Well, we got to change some hearts and minds here. Everything in Maryland gets blamed on the Republicans. I mean, the bottom line is a very, very blue state, and the Democrats are very intent or entrenched. That's the proper word. But with that said, we are undeterred. We're just trying to do the right thing. We're trying to do the right thing in a nonpartisan manner. Now, the Democrats have been in charge here for decades. Okay. We've got a one party state in the legislature. We had Larry Hogan as a Republican governor, but, the governor can do only so much when you've got the legislature that is filled with people that just want to give away free stuff. So, for example, we had a trillion $3 billion surplus when Hogan left office, and now we got a $5 billion deficit. So that's an $8 billion turnaround since Westmore came in, and that's not a good look for him. But I still think that he wants to be president. He's just, for whatever reason, he's just not doing a good job. Now,
Yeah.
as a congressman, I think that I can have some impact. Now, here's another thing. A lot of businesses are leaving Maryland in a hurry and they can't afford to pay the taxes. And I haven't seen where the congressional delegation or the governor or lieutenant governor have worked hard to bring businesses into this state. They have been relying on the federal government. They see the federal government as a partnership, but the issue of the day is that we've got way too many people in this state relying on the federal government as a job. And as you know, Mr. Trump is in the business of trying to reduce the size of the federal government. And people seem to fail to understand that during COVID, 80% of the federal government was working from home, which meant they literally weren't working. And a lot of people, weren't the federal government wasn't generating a lot. of effort. So the issue today is that we can get along with far fewer federal workers. I know that sounds kind of rough, but we can't maintain this bloated federal workforce when you can do a lot more with automation and you can do a lot more with more efficiency studies. So we should be in the business of bringing government or bringing businesses into Maryland and paying our taxes that way.
Okay. So, and that does make a lot of sense, and I completely understand what you're saying. Um, and we have CrossCheck Media has reached out to Governor Moore's office to invite him to be interviewed on Power Hour, and we have not heard anything from him.
Imagine that.
And yeah, and but who knows? But talking about Baltimore, and I know we're talking about on the federal level, but your voters are there in Maryland, so in Baltimore, the with Mayor Brandon Scott, there seems to be a huge economic push right now for the city. And I wonder how much of that is being orchestrated by Annapolis, by Governor Moore, because in the state, they or in the city, they are truly trying to bring businesses into the city with tax rebates. They also have some state-owned commercial real estate that they're willing to lease out at pennies on the dollar just to get businesses in. With all that said, though, do you feel, because District 3 is not Baltimore City, do you feel that the constituents of District 3 might be kind of on the side and not really respected the way that they should be?
Well, District 3 is a very highly educated place. These people are, the highest concentration of PhDs is right here in Howard County in the
Wow.
world based on NSA. So that's another story. These people are going to be okay no matter what. So
Okay.
they're fine folks. But back to Baltimore, the idea of bringing in businesses and doing incentives for business. I know you get to Baltimore often. I do
Yes.
often. The issue of the day is the crime. You can't walk down the street and not feel fear. And the kind of people that would be able to bring, economic vitality back to Baltimore, they're not going to want to live and work in Baltimore. So the first thing that has to happen is there needs to be a reduction in crime. And back to Brandon Scott and Governor Moore, you see what happened in DC when DJT brought in the National Guard. Now now Washington is thriving. They're doing the same thing in Memphis. They're doing the same thing in Chicago. Governor Moore and his crew are totally against bringing the National Guard into Baltimore to reduce the crime so regular people can have regular lives. Right now, we need to take care of that grandma who can't go to the grocery store because she's afraid to go out. And I know people like that. And before we bring businesses in or make this overture towards businesses, they're not going to come unless they can operate in a way that is virtually crime free. And so I believe that Brandon Scott and the governor are barking up the wrong tree, as they say where I'm from. And we got to do better. We got to do better. And it starts with reducing crime.
What's your opinion on the National Guard going into Baltimore?
I am a big fan of it. People, part of my job, one of my many jobs during my 34 years in the military and the government was I was what's called an expert SME, subject matter expert on what they call defense support of civil authorities, posse comitatus, that sort of thing, the Insurrection Act. And my job was to make sure that U.S. Northcom gave everything that the federal government or the local government needed because we had access to huge amounts of resources and money to make sure that the average American was taken care of. Like Katrina, when you saw all those soldiers down there, that was Northcom doing what Northcom does. You might have seen the 82nd Airborne. Well, we were the ones who managed all the legal stuff to make sure it was all possible to, go past posse comitatus and all these other laws. We wanted to make sure everything was legal. We made sure that all the money got where it needed to be done, that sort of thing. So, with that said, you've got people in Baltimore that are suffering for real. And they're sending their children to school. And Baltimore has arguably the worst school system in the entire nation. So people are afraid to send their kids to school. People are, as I last checked, the average student in Baltimore, they're spending $23,000 a year. That's ridiculous. That's
Yeah.
absolutely crazy. And so, yeah, we got to do something about the crime. And I think bringing the Guardian would be a super, super idea. And the results are there, right there from, what they did in Washington, D.C. Now you can go down to Union Station and, have dinner and have coffee and enjoy yourself like any other normal city. And, if you look at the statistics, you'll find that some of the most notorious cities in the world, like Caracas, Pakistan, and down in Venezuela, have lower crime rates than they do in Anacostia. Now, people don't seem to understand. People who aren't from DC, they equate DC and they forget that there's wards in DC. You go to Anacostia and it's like a third world country. But the issue of the
Yeah.
day is now it's gotten a lot better that the guards have been deployed. So let's send the guard over to Penn North in Baltimore. Let's send the guard over to West Baltimore. Let's give people an opportunity to live the American dream, crime
Yeah,
free.
I love that. I love that approach. I love that message. That makes a lot of sense. And I know the voters will get a lot out of that as well. Let's turn the page here because you ran for the rep seat. And for the audience, so they know, there are 8 congressional districts in the state of Maryland. District 3 is one that is able to be flipped Republican. You were in the lead in the polls in the last election in 24. Unfortunately, things didn't go your way. What was the one big mistake that you think you and your campaign made leading up to the election?
I believe we have great ideas, but the ground game just simply wasn't there the way it should be. We just simply didn't knock on enough doors. We knocked on doors and we really thought we were going to win. Some of the fathers of the party literally congratulated me before we had the primary. They really thought I was going to win. I thought I was going to win, but what we're going to do differently is we're going to just put more effort in. We're going to, walk. We're going to recruit more veterans. We're going to knock on a lot more doors. And I think that'll be the one thing that's going to make the difference. And another thing I believe that's going to make a difference is when we were running before, the Biden administration was in charge. Now we've got DJT in charge, and there are a lot of the hard looks towards election integrity. There's a lot of things that are happening in election integrity that are good, that are going to make things a little bit more fair. And you know as well as I do, we've had 120-year-old people voting in the elections. Those voter rolls have to be cleaned up. And
Yeah.
I got good friends of yours as well that are out there fighting the good fight, cleaning up those voter rolls. And I think we're going to have a whole different outcome this time.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Now, you are right though. With Trump being in the White House right now, that really can change and tip the scales in your favor, especially in a district that is notoriously known. I mean, you will have an opportunity, probably the best opportunity in the state to
Oh,
win
yeah.
that seat in District 3. So, and that's great news. I know you have a big Veterans Day event coming up as well, so that makes sense that you're tying in the veterans plus you being a veteran, and thank you for your service. And I'm sure that's going to all really go hand in hand. Your I would say your rivals going for the Republican ticket next year. Do you know of any? Do you have any declared yet? And if so, are they ex-military as well?
So far, no one has declared, and I hope it stays that way. Um,
I'm sure.
there you go. We're fighting a good fight, and we're having a lot of success on social media. During the month of August, for example, just on Facebook alone, we had 500,000 views, and people seem to like what we're saying. And for somebody talking politics, that's a lot. So I feel pretty good about that. We're growing every day, and we got friends like you that are backing us. That's going to make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, no doubt about that because I believe in your message, Bernie. I mean, we've known each other for a long time. You're just one of these genuinely great humans
Oh
and
man,
just
come on now.
incredibly honest, ethical. I mean, everything that you want in a politician. So it makes sense that you are running, and I could see why you would be one of the early favorites going for that 2026 seat in the midterms. So one final question for you though. So with everything going that's happening, the temperature with obviously geopolitics, you got interest rate fluctuation, you have a number with obviously a lot of headwinds that the president has to deal with on a daily basis. One of those is inflation. And this isn't a question about what can you do with prices, because that's just a canned answer. But you have some major 2025 special elections that are taking place, one of which is in New York City.
Oh
And you
boy.
have Mandami, who is the Democratic Socialist, going against who is a Democrat with Cuomo, but he's running as an independent. You got Curtis Sliwa that's out there as well, who part of the Guardian Angels. Mandami's talking about opening up, with grocery stores, city-run grocery stores, basically free food for everybody. That cannot happen. It just is not. It just cannot happen in a capitalist world. But with that, though, if he wins and that happens, are you nervous, just as a politician, that that can actually have a rollover effect into cities such as Baltimore?
It's very sad that a lot of people, especially young people, think that socialism is the way. Socialism always results in large amounts of death. As you alluded to, things have to be paid for. Even in a socialist economy, people don't do things for free. And free grocery stores, well, okay, people are going to get very, very lazy and very, very controlled by the government. Our system is tough to deal with, capitalism, but it's the best system in the world. It's the only one that really, really, really works. And we've been a model for the rest of the world for a very long time, as evidenced by why people risk their lives to come here. So this Mamdani fellow, I give him big thumbs down. I hope the people of New York will wake up and figure out that he is not good. But as far as Baltimore, we got to educate these people because things are not good in Baltimore as far as jobs and education. And it's only going to get worse if they adopt socialist principles. So I'm going to do everything I can to ward that off.
Yeah, and on that side, what people I don't think realize is that if you start giving away some items for free, that increases costs for other items, and therefore you have the inflation side of it too. So they do go hand in hand, and it's going to be interesting that the election is in 2 weeks. They actually have early voting starting in New York City this weekend, starting with Saturday. So we'll see how the polls turn out from that last debate last night, but I don't know. It is looking like it's going to be Mandami's to win at this point, but who knows? Regardless, though, I love you, Bernie. I think you're going to do great. I know we're going to have you on multiple times. I personally am looking forward to the Veterans Day event that you are having. Are you able to disclose any information to the audience about it?
I can't say the location specifically, but it'll be in Clarksburg, Maryland at 6 p.m. on Veterans Day. We're going to have a great time. And anybody that wants to know the location, go to my website, berneyflowers.com. That's berneyflowers.com. And that's where the location will be. You can sign up. We're not charging. Okay, we're not. This is more of a, yeah, we'd appreciate some love offerings, like they say in church, but this is about gathering like minded people, gathering up an army, because we're going to need an army to win.
Well, that's great. I know the show is airing live right now. We'll put up the graphic for berneyflowers.com. You definitely want to check it out because Bernie spelled Berney. Want
There you
to
go.
go to his website for more information. And I, for one, will be looking forward to that. Bernie, you said it all. You always say it all when you come on Power Hour. I think it's great. I can't wait to have you back again.
Love you, man. Thank
Love
you.
you more. So, on behalf of Lieutenant Colonel Berney Flowers, who is running for Congress, definitely take a look at what he has to say at berneyflowers.com. And I am Todd Schoenberger. Coming up later today, I have Jay Hatfield, the CIO of InfraCap's, going to be joining me talking all about the markets. And then tomorrow we have Margarita Cheng is coming for the first time, coming to talk to me one-on-one. You definitely want to hear what both of those Wall Street experts have to say. So until then, we'll catch you next time. Take care.